So thank you very much. This is the second year I have the opportunity to address this now amazing event, which is becoming one of the leading events in blockchain. I have also the privilege to work with Don last year already in this exactly forum uh, to launch what it was this idea, which he has described in his presentation in a master way, which is to make Geneva the center of excellency of blockchain. And why we are aiming to Geneva is because Geneva has all the assets to make it happen. I was in the UN for 15 years in Geneva, where I was running as an expert, the technical backbone of the UN. We have been working with the web, with Tim Berners-Lee, and Geneva has all the major implementations and success stories of the internet actually happening in this city. We even have telecom. I don't know if you guys remember telecom in the year 2000 when the entire telecom industry was coming to Geneva on a yearly basis in Palexpo to show how Geneva will become a center of gravity on what we call now the internet too. So just to maybe position WISeKey for the people that don't know WISeKey. So I founded WISeKey in 1999 as a startup. So we were one of the first .com startups. The company has evolved over the years. I am just proud to announce that WISeKey entered into the NASDAQ. So we are the second company after Logitech in the history of Switzerland to enter into the NASDAQ. We are listed on the NASDAQ. That happened the 4th of December last year. And now WISeKey is what I call we are in the Olympic Games of the next generation internet. We have been working very focused on three areas, which are identity management. WISeKey created in 1999 the first cryptographic root key, which is, by the way, is supervised by a Swiss foundation with the name OISTE, Organisation Internationale de la Sécurité des Transactions Électroniques. And OISTE is like a watchdog on this cryptographic root key that now has been installed in something like 4 billion devices. The cryptographic root key in the year 2000 was launched with ITU, the International Telecommunication Union, which is the standard body for X509. And at that time, we brought to Geneva in what we call WISeWorld 2000. We brought to Geneva 150 countries represented at the ministerial level, just to explain that in the future of the world, cryptographic root keys cannot be owned and operated by private companies, because that creates dependency, and that creates an environment where nations of the world will have a massive risk to allocate their trust model to a private company. On the basis of that, the WISeKey evolved. We become also a manufacturer of microprocessors, chips. So WISeKey has now an install base of 1.6 billion microprocessors. So we are powering drones, connected cars, smart cities, traffic lights that are now being powered with the WISeKey Volta IC. All this is available in our stand if you want to visit. And those private, microprocessors, we are injecting a key, which comes from the cryptographic root key that WISeKey has created. So that means that every single object has its own personalized key, and that key connects to a blockchain ledger to decentralize the access of identity. In terms of the identity of people, the cryptographic root key of WISeKey has generated something like 2 billion identities, and I'm going to show you later in this is the ecosystem. So 3.6 billion routers. This is happening every day. Is a massive amount of new hardware that gets certified by the cryptographic root key of WISeKey. We have Cisco routers using it. We have laptops, mobile phones, connected cars. We have now 1.6 billion mobile OS, and they are hosting WISeKey. We just signed a partnership agreement with the largest Chinese browser, 360, which for first time ever use a cryptographic root key, which is not a Chinese root key. So now WISeKey cryptographic root key has been downloaded 700 million times in China, making one of the dominant download on that. And then we have the certification of email. 250 million emails are being security signed and security certified by WISeKey. What Don just mentioned before, and I had an amazing honor to meet him. He was my mentor when I was still in the UN, when I read for first time the digital economy. And when we met in Davos, I explained to him the importance to look Geneva in a special way, due the ecosystem and due the fact that Geneva can truly aspire to be this Internet 2 hub of the world, because we have here all the major trust delegations in the world. We have WIPO dealing with intellectual property, we have WHO dealing with health, we have WCO dealing with commerce, we have IATA dealing with the airline industry. By the way, we're going to have different panels later in the afternoon, which are going to be moderating with these parties. And these organizations, they are recognized as the TTP, the third trusted party organizations in the world. So what about to bring them together to work with the Geneva government, to work with WISeKey, BRI in a collaborative blockchain center of excellence? So we are very happy. Did you hear this morning from Mr. Mode that the Geneva government has endorsed this project, and this project is now expanding with the help of Mr. Wang Wei, which we'll say a few words later, to China, as China through the endorsement and support of the government and President Xi, it's now becoming one of the largest blockchain countries in the world. So Geneva, we are hoping to convert Geneva, what we already did in the 1863. Geneva created a Red Cross. And what it was, the Red Cross was in case of conflict or war, soldiers could be retrieved from the battlefield and be taken care without people shooting the people, and they will take them out. We need a Red Cross on the internet, a Red Cross that will protect citizens, that will protect consumers, and they will have some kind of extraterritoriality reach. So in case of abuses of consumers, of abuses of citizens, we could go and save them and protect them without any further interference. So the activities of the Blockchain Center of Excellency, which is already operational, is operational. The World Trade Center 2 in Geneva. You can come in and visit. We can cooperate. It's an endeavor that is not a commercial endeavor. The idea is to bring all the best experience. By the way, on the booth, you will see few companies already working with us, like WeCan, where we establish collaborative agreements with them. There is an amazing team here of young people in Geneva developing blockchain applications. We just last week in Creus, we brought many other companies, and they are adding to that ecosystem. And this is an area of specialization now is IoT, because this is where WISeKey is becoming very big and very fast. Is digital brand protection, which is going to be covered also during a panel with PMI a few minutes ago. It is the mobile security and ethical AI. And this, by the way, ethical AI will be covered in an event that we're organizing in Davos in 2 days, Wednesday, where you guys, many of you are participating, where we're going to be discussing the need of supervising the code. As we supervise the cryptographic root key of WISeKey, we need to supervise codes, then they are being thrown into the industry, and we don't know if those codes have bias or not. So the supervision and the analysis of those codes are going to be also done through the Blockchain Center of Excellency. So as I say, those are concrete members, then they have developed application with us, Oracle, WeCan, Orochan. Those are available. I'm not going to spend too much time. It's nearly lunchtime. But just to give you an idea, then this is already in progress. This is only in 1 year. So from announcing last year our intention to create a blockchain center of excellency, now we can announce concrete projects, then they are being executed. And this is going to be distributed in a global network of blockchain centers of excellencies, that they have been built in China with the help of One Way, but also in Latin America, in the United States, in many in Africa. And again, the idea of those blockchain center of excellency is to become a laboratory, a entry level in any city of the world, and they want to learn something about blockchain, and they want to see what the other countries are doing with blockchain. They will go to the Blockchain Center of Excellency, and they will find the same standards, the same applications that any other city of the world will be doing. And all that will coincide into the Geneva Hub, and through the Geneva Hub, we will also integrate into major places like the international organizations. So just again, we are very late, so I'm not going to cover that. We will cover that into the panel. But those are already big companies, and they are working with us, integrating blockchain into identity management. The thing WISeKey brings in a very clear way is that blockchain requires trust model, cryptographic trust model. And the decentralized architecture of the blockchain is good enough for some application, but it's not good enough on applications where you need to decentralize the trust model from a vertical process. Let's say a government that wants to issue identities for their citizens so they are able to vote. The vote part can be done at the ledger level, but the identity delegation needs to be done in a different way, because obviously you cannot just create your identity yourself. You need an attribute party that will attribute to you the right to own that identity. So those are the areas that we are covering, and those areas are becoming now case studies that allow us to come into a very concrete model. Just to finalize, because I have a continuation now in a few minutes and I don't want to take your lunchtime, we are just launching the Trust Protocol Association. So this association is a Geneva-based association, which is the framework association for the blockchain centers of excellency. And this association, what it does is allows us basically to have a legal framework on where blockchain center of excellencies will be adding to the work we are doing. They will be building nodes, so we are building nodes at national level, the same way that Libra has his own node. Our nodes will not be based on cryptocurrency allocation node, it will be based on trust. So if you are in China, you want to develop a China blockchain project, but that requires a cryptographic root key to digitally sign the ledger, they will be part of the association. So because it's very late, my presentation was much longer. I'm not going to bother you with that. We will have panels later, then I will be covering the subjects in particular with all the panelists. What I would like now is to bring to the panel Mr. Wang Wei from China. He came last year and again this year with a delegation of 50 speakers and investors in blockchain, which are coming to Davos, and we managed to ask him to stop over in Geneva. And Wang Wei will make this introduction of the concept, and Don just explain before my presentation what we call the trust triangle. So I give the floor to Don Wei. If you can come in just to say a few words to the audience. We only have 5 minutes because then we're going to have a panel with Mr. Alvise, PMI, on illicit trade. Don Wei.
Oh, thank you. Give me the worst time before lunch. Anyway, I'm delighted to be here with all the Chinese delegation. Actually, I'm first show my high gratitude to Carlos, Don, and your WISeKey team. We are here second time. Actually, we think here, Geneva, the conference is more important than Davos. We'll be there later. So I think that's why we discussed last year about the Triangle Trust City with Don, Geneva, Beijing, and Toronto set up at the first group. And then we welcome other cities join with us. I think we'll cover later afternoon. And I think a lot of people concerned about China last year, what happened. I think the three things very influential in China. Number one is China-American, the trade war. We just signed the trade, the first phrase agreement. That means we still work together for the globalization. And China reform, open, still keep on. And China and American have been very strong in the fintech and blockchain business. So that means the two power countries still work together. That's good news. And the second thing is, I think the labor things. A lot of people talk about that. The labor things have speed up China central bank to open their program for digital currency. That will inspire a lot of cryptocurrency happen in China. So we wait to see in next year. And the third thing is China's chairman, Xi Jinping, has endorsed the AI blockchain business. Will bring another high moment this year. So that's why we bring the Chinese delegation. I think we this year we had 20 or almost 30 delegation. They come over from China for over 10 cities. We are leading by China Blockchain Application Center. We set up 4 years ago. Now we had over 1,000 individual member, over 50 institution directors. So let's. I think I would call those people stand up. So give the people chance to work together. Like, could you stand up with China somewhere? I don't know. Yes, all this team. Yes. Okay. I also, why I asked them stand up, I think so we had a whole afternoon tomorrow we can communicate each other. And those guys we just make small statistical analysis. So they representing over 7 or 8 listing company on blockchain in China, in Hong Kong, United States. So I bring 3 people come up. Ms. Deng Li, she's chairman delegations, and Mr. Zhang Shoushong come up, and Mr. Han. Could you come up there? So I make those plans stand there. So I hope encourage you contact with them, maybe take some picture with them. Future, they are probably Jack Ma, in a way. So
Future
just
Jack
introduce. Thank you very much. Few moments.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, as I said before, this is a unique opportunity for Geneva because not only one way can mobilize 100 cities in China to become nodes, they are also very present in the World Economic Forum, Tianjin, and Dalian. As you know, every year the World Economic Forum organizes the new champions event in China. And China and Switzerland, we have a free trade agreement between both countries, and we have to use it. So there's a lot of business opportunity for Swiss companies into China, in particular if you are dealing with the integration of blockchain into concrete applications that can further improve and boost the Chinese economy, and at the same time the Swiss economy. So with that, I will move to the next panel. This is the last panel before you guys can go eat, or you would like to go eat. So I would like to bring back to the panel Don Tascott and Alvise. We have is Alvise here? Yeah, sorry. Alvise, Vice President of Illicit Trade in Prevention in PMI, Philip Morris. We will discuss how blockchain can reduce and eventually solve the illicit trade problem. Obviously, all the best.
Hi. Have a seat.
So yeah, we're gonna run out of
Technology has
small
transformed trade. Advances in technology and communication, as well as freer, more open, globalized markets, have revolutionized production, e-commerce and supply chains. However, these same digital developments are also enabling illicit trade. A 2019 report by Chainalysis estimated that transactions using Bitcoin to make illegal purchases on the dark web exceeded $1 billion in 2019. A 2019 joint report by the OECD and EU IPO estimates the value of counterfeited and pirated goods traded worldwide to amount to $509 billion annually. Both legitimate businesses and tax authorities lose revenue because of illicit trade. Illicit trade also funds and supports criminal networks. In 2018, the World Atlas of Illicit Flows estimated Al-Qaeda-affiliated groups in Syria earned between $18 and $35 million from illegal taxation, kidnapping and smuggling of counterfeits and drugs. But technology is also pivotal to fighting illicit trade. It enables better tracking in supply chains of consumer goods, such as pharmaceuticals and tobacco products. And new technologies, such as blockchain, could offer promising solutions by creating a decentralized and unhackable system. Technology also helps tackle the illegal wildlife trade, but no one government or single industry can address this complex problem on its own. National governments, international organizations, the private sector, and civil society all have a role to play. Tackling illicit trade requires collaboration amongst all stakeholders by sharing learnings, information, innovative solutions, and technologies. Together, we can counter illicit networks.
So everybody understands the importance of fighting illicit trade. I personally, in WISeKey, that's one of my major focus in the company. We have been helping watch manufacturers to reduce counterfeiting in all over the world. We produce 25 million luxury watches, but we have something like 250 million copies of them. Illicit trade is actually the way criminals get their money. And their bank accounts are full of bitcoins now, as they get paid in bitcoins through the dark web. So the panel here today is to understand really the consequences of this very important danger for our society, as this affects everybody. And I have the pleasure to bring Alvise, a very strong expert on the subject, running a very complex industry, which is the tobacco industry through PMI. So because this meeting, it focuses regulatory aspects. How Alvise, how a company like PMI can work in this very complex regulatory framework that will, in one way, will allow you to put some norms, but in other way, in other side, you have to fight a disorganized market, and they are so effective with using the new technology, creating the problem that you are trying to solve. So some information also about you.
Yeah, thank you, Carlos, for the question. Just let me start with, first of all, praising and congratulating the Geneva authorities for organizing and investing in blockchain here in Geneva. As Don mentioned, the jury is still out to elect which is going to be the center of expertise, and you said there are going to be several ones. I really think for a company like Philip Morris, who is based in the French-speaking part of Switzerland, to have this center of expertise in Geneva is something we welcome a lot. So congratulations to the Swiss authorities. The Geneva ones. Now, before coming to your question, I think the audience maybe have another question, which is why is Philip Morris a company who is in an industry which is to all standards, an old industry producing cigarettes? Why are we interested in blockchain? Why are we interested in technology? Well, the reason is pretty simple, is that today, everything, and I think this is what Don also mentioned, everything is impacted by this transformation. All industries are impacted by digitalization and by new technology, and blockchain is just one of them. If you think, and I guess some of you in the audience smoke cigarettes, but some of you also use new products like electronic cigarettes or heating on tobacco, and not burn tobacco products. And these products have technology. They have these batteries, and the batteries are small but powerful, and it would not be possible if the iPhone and the telecom industry and the mobile industry had developed this in the last 10 years. Without those batteries, these products will not be there. Each one has a microchip. You're mentioning so many products have a microchip. People don't know it, but each of these electronic cigarettes, these heat not burn products have a microchip in order to regulate the temperature. So in order to fulfill our vision in Philip Morris, which is to stop selling cigarettes, but selling products which are less harmful than cigarettes, these new products that I just mentioned, technology is fundamental. When it comes to illicit trade as well, technology is also fundamental. In the case of the cigarette industry, you may know that all packs of cigarettes now have a unique code on the back of their pack. And this is a regulation, and this I'm linking to your question, why regulation is important. This is a regulation which the European Union passed in 2014 in order to track all pack of cigarettes, all tobacco products throughout Europe, from the producers down to the point of sale. Now, it's not using blockchain technology at that time when this directive was passed. It was 2014, and therefore blockchain was still at the very beginning, if at all. It's another technology, but it is a regulation. It's important to have regulation because if you don't have regulation, then each country, each government will pass different standards or different form of regulation and process and rules. And therefore, then you will be able to track a product that goes from France to Germany or from Sweden down to Spain. And illicit trade knows no borders. In the cigarettes business, but even in any other kind of illicit trade, the smugglers know no borders. So it's important the regulation try to break these borders. And that's why regulation is important. And I'll stop here. Maybe I'll come back later on this point of regulation.
Yep, with pleasure. So Don, one of my experience trying to solve that problem when I go to talk to big organizations is that they telling me data is available, but it's on silos. You know, you have each brand and has very good data on their product, but it's in silos. So that means that this data is not decentralized. It's not easy to access. How you think blockchain, in line with your last inspiring image of the bird getting together to fight the enemy, how do you think blockchain can radically disrupt that?
It's a great question. So let me start by saying that I think that blockchain and even cryptocurrencies is not, it's wrong to view it as the problem. That it should be viewed primarily as a solution. Now, sure, some criminals use crypto, but you know, criminals are always the first to adopt exciting new technologies, from the automobile to the flip phone. That doesn't excuse it, but if you talk to sophisticated law enforcement agencies, they'll tell you they think crypto is a wonderful thing because it's way better than cash. And cash is the foundation of a lot of this illegal activity. It's the foundation of the global drug industry. It's the foundation of organized crime. It evaporates and has spillage, and it's what undermines tax revenues and all kinds of things. Now, if you and I do a transaction using a traditional digital currency like Bitcoin, you're anonymous and I'm anonymous, but the record of the transaction is there. And law enforcement can use metadata to go in and start to identify some patterns that are interesting or problematic. There's a great TEDx talk by a woman named Catherine Hahn, who is a federal prosecutor, talks about how they use Bitcoin to get the bad guys. So that's sort of the first thing. And to the question, one of the executives at FedEx says blockchain is a team sport. And he says, it used to be we could, develop some new application. We developed the whole chain of custody idea. You build a system, you stick a FedEx logo on it, you take it out to market, you lead an industry. He says, but when you look at something like the logistics industry, you can't do that because all these silos between companies and between all the other institutions in that industry need to be broken down. Like, for example, what's a bill of lading? Well, unless you have standards as to what a bill of lading is, and that's one of dozens of areas where you need standards, you can't move forward to move to an integrated supply chain where you have transparency and where things like illicit trade can be spotted and can be tackled. So FedEx is one of the leaders of BITA, Blockchain and Transportation Alliance. And last year at the big event in Toronto, I interviewed an executive from FedEx, DHL, and UPS together on the stage. And I said, normally, wouldn't you guys want to kill each other? And they, normally we would, but they're all working together very closely to rebuild the whole industry on the idea that a rising tide lifts all boats. And if they build a better industry for customers, it's going to be a better industry for them, and they'll compete on a higher and safer and more level where there's a lot less illicit and criminal activity.
Thank you very much. Obviously, for full disclosure, we're going to discuss on the PMI impact, if you don't mind, a few questions about PMI. And for full disclosure, I must say that I am a member of the PMI impact, so everybody understands that the fight of illicit trade cannot be only a conceptual fight. You have to put the resources, the mean, the money, and the will to do it. And one of the things I was attracted by the work of WISeKey is the work that PMI Impact has done in fighting illicit trade where the illicit trade happens. We are talking about the triangle cities in South America, near Argentina. We are talking in so many other places, and also the collaborative multi-stakeholder approach. They have to select the best startups and the best project. Maybe you can brief us about the PMI Impact endeavor.
Yeah, with pleasure. PMI Impact is a project that I did not launch, thank you, but it was Philip Morris.
Philip Morris, yes.
It's more Philip Morris to launch it. Is a project which is funding private sectors, government institutions, universities, a broader number of stakeholders is financing project to fight illicit trade. And not only illicit trade on cigarettes, but illicit trade in general across all products, by pharmaceutical, arms, people, and you name it. With the belief that it's all about cooperation. And if all these different industries cooperate together, if the different institutes, governments, university cooperate, then the alliance is much stronger to fight a common enemy, which are the smugglers and the organized crime, which will smuggle any product that make money. They don't care if it's cigarettes, tomorrow it can be drugs, anything that makes money, they'll smuggle. So it's really about cooperation, and it's about a public-private partnership. And going back to your question on regulation, I think really Geneva has blockchain, this excellent sense of excellence, but also the WHO the World Health Organization, which happened both to be here. And right now there's been a treaty, international treaty, that was passed 1 year ago and entered in force 1 year ago, which is, to my knowledge, the only international treaty that is specifically targeting to fight illicit trade on tobacco in this case. And therefore, it's a perfect occasion that regulations, the standards that are going to be set up worldwide to fight illicit trade by the WHO can build on the center of expertise which is built here on blockchain. And therefore, I think regulation is really a perfect combination.
And because you're in Lausanne, the idea is to expand, obviously, to the Le Mans region, right? As we have also EPFL and many other great knowledge centers around. One question for Don: how the BRI could really effectively help through the injection of blockchain and Deeptech the illicit trade problem? Because to be honest, I have been following this problem from a long time, and I was at a certain point optimist that technology will solve the problem until I realized that the people doing illicit trade, they are using technology even in a more effective way than there are people defending illicit trade, maybe with the exception of PMI and some companies that have put so many resources. How BRI could create that standard?
Well, it's about leadership, and it's about there are more good people than bad people.
Yes.
And it's about the good people becoming knowledgeable and informed about the opportunities and challenges. And at the BRI, and you now have access to all of this, just blockchainresearchinstitute.org or .com, and you can get a case study on, say, Everledger. This was a conflict diamonds was a really big problem. This is hundreds of thousands of people died through tribal wars, terrorism, conflict of all kinds, funded by diamonds. Now with Everledger, a multi-stakeholder initiative using blockchain, this problem is pretty much solved. So the stakes and the consequences of taking action are really significant. You know, you talk about illicit pharmaceuticals. Yeah, it's a multi-billion-dollar loss for the big pharma companies, but it also kills millions of people every year. Because if you've got malaria and you're taking some kind of medication that's fake, and a lot of it is, then you're going to die. As opposed to if you were taking a proper medication where we knew the provenance and we knew that it's a valid and authentic medication, you don't die. So that's what we care about this a lot, and we're launching a whole stream called Blockchain for Good research that's looking into topics like this. And it's a great example. You know, if you have companies that want to do this, because companies care about their shareholders, they also care about other stakeholders. But it's a wonderful thing because you've got all of the users and all of the population of societies now that can really benefit from a much more trustworthy and legitimate world.
Yeah, and I think we didn't say, but I guess PMI has allocated $100 million, right, to this endeavor. So maybe how this money is being allocated.
Yeah, indeed, it's $100 million over a period of time. So far we have granted up to, I think, 60 projects so far. I've won a grant from Philip Morris for a total of $48 million. So there's still $15 million to go. It started in 2016, so ideally it will go from 2016 for, I think, for a good 10 years, so still $50 million to allocate. And clearly, being here in Geneva today with blockchain, we are, as a company, very interested in blockchain. Without going into specificity of the technology, which I'm definitely not an expert, but what blockchain does, and I think this is clear to everyone, it is building trust. And what does a company want more than having trust with the consumers? And this could really, for companies that want to enhance it, build it, I think it's a fantastic tool that goes well beyond just tracking the product. It goes well beyond just stopping illicit trade, but it's really creating a new bond, an enhanced bond with the consumer, because it's all about trust. People want to know if the product comes from zone wars, if it has child labors, if it has what is if there's a fair trade for the farmers. So I think blockchain brings to companies really the trust that is fundamental in the relation with the consumers.
Thank you very much.
Carlos, let me just answer something else that
Yep.
you were saying, what could the BRI do? And my answer was there's a lot of public information now that people can benefit from. But you can also become a member of the Blockchain Research Institute.
Sure.
Then you get the full thing. You get a whole suite of services, educational stuff. You attend events. You get an executive briefing by me anywhere in the world. So I would welcome a conversation with any companies here about joining the BRI.
I know you can
Philip
do it through
Morris is a
Geneva.
member.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah, now you can do it through Geneva, as the European hub is going to be in
Yeah.
Geneva. So this gives you an idea on what we are trying to achieve with the help of this amazing idea that Geneva organizes every year, the Blockchain Congress, because it is really a multi-stakeholder environment that allows us to present projects, to bring multinational think tanks, governments, and private sector, so we can all together work together. One of the problems I always highlighted in Geneva, why we lost the web, why we let so many good projects live in the city, is because we didn't work together. We have a tendency to work in our own corner. So this is a unique opportunity to work together, to bring our expertise and know-how for the benefit of everybody. I think we are in a generation that if we don't take the right decisions ourselves, there might be no further decisions to be taken, because the world is getting very complex. So I'd just like to thank your attention, give a hand to the amazing speakers, and wish you a great lunch. Very good.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thanks, Don. All right, everybody, just before you guys leave for lunch, just make sure lunch is until 2 o'clock and then the sessions start. You know all the 8 sessions, the streams that you have. Choose wisely, and if needed, you can always switch between the streams. The afternoon session runs until 6 o'clock, and at this point, thank you so much and have a great lunch.